Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's virtual office hour. My name is Cassandra McGee. I'm a Senior Program Manager with JFF. Our topic today is effective registered youth apprenticeship stakeholder engagement strategies during COVID-19. The discussion will be led by MACNY, Martha Pongi, who is the Director of Apprenticeship, and Lori Ferguson, the Associate Director of Apprenticeship. As noted, please know that you can participate and we value your input, your questions, your comments. Please feel free to do that live during our question and answer session. Also, you can please put your comments or questions in the chat box. Also in the chat box, we're inviting you to continue the discussion from today and beyond about registered youth apprenticeship by joining our community of practice. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andrea Messing-Mathy, Director with JFF, who oversees this project. Andrea?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. As Cassandra said, this is our virtual office hours, and we thank you all for joining us for this. We're still a little bit in the experimentation phase. We are trying to find new ways to engage as practitioners and as workers in this space, and as we build registered youth apprenticeships and trying to dig into individual new topics. So today we've invited Martha Pongi and Lori Ferguson from the Manufacturers Association from Central New York to talk to us about some of the work they've done in building stakeholder engagement during this really unusual time that we're all living in. So thanks so much for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Martha and Lori.
Thanks very much, Andrea and Cassandra. And just to reiterate, if you have questions at any time, please make sure that you're putting them in the chat so that Lori and I are aware of the questions that come up during the conversation. I think that all of us who are involved in youth apprenticeship know that there are really more stakeholders in the youth realm than there are in adult registered apprenticeship, and that we truly rely on parents and guardians and educators in very focused ways to make sure that we are providing the kinds of supports that we need to encourage youth to take on youth apprenticeship careers. And I just kind of wanted to start out by saying that, prior to COVID, MACNY liked to refer to itself as events are us. We typically hosted over 350 in-person events every year, at least one a day, which gave us sort of unfettered and unlimited access to the multiple companies that we called members, multiple employers, and community partners who attended our in-person events, our training, our councils, things like that. As an organization, we have a K through 12 arm called Partners for Education and Business. And through that K through 12 arm, we were in schools every day in some manner across the region. I saw guidance counselors, I saw community college educators, I saw high school teachers, and that was a daily event again for us. If I didn't see my community partners at a MACNY event, then we served on boards. And so we saw them again in different ways. Our biggest struggle before COVID was that parent engagement that a lot of people struggle with as they go forward. That was truthfully our biggest challenge, and we were working on that. We had things in place that we were going to start to work on, and then the world turned upside down. And we can go to the next slide, Cassandra. So, during COVID, challenges that we'd never expected to see and really hadn't anticipated started to come up. I don't know if all of you have struggled with some of the same things, but students in our community are not all in school. Some of the high schools that we work with, students are only participating in their CTE programs for half of the year. So I might see 9th graders and 10th graders from September till January. And then I'm going to start seeing my juniors and seniors January through June. a lot of our high schools did not have access to technology for the first semester. A lot of the students that we work with will not turn their cameras on because they're afraid to show you what's going on in their home situations. This makes it extremely difficult not to know where kids are, but to build relationships with kids. And apprenticeship is really all built on relationships. We're navigating situations with our most vulnerable populations whose parents found childcare a challenge before COVID. And now they have to choose between going to work and educating their children. And older kids are being relegated to providing childcare so their parents can go to work. This makes it extremely difficult to make sure that that engagement piece with our students is continuing and is not interrupted. I think our biggest problem with the school district as we move forward, our biggest challenges are that I think all of us can say that no CTE program can be taught completely in a remote environment. So if we're not seeing kids on a regular basis, it's hard to get that work-based learning piece in. Our educators are hyper-focused on attendance and keeping students in school. One of the conversations that we've had with the Syracuse City School District, which is regionally the closest to us, is that they have been working for the past 5 years to get their graduation levels up. And last year, 2 of the CTE programs had graduation programs close to 90%, which is unheard of in one of the poorest cities in the United States. They're so proud of it, and they should be. And as we start to move forward, our biggest concern is how is that going to happen when we're not getting kids to school and we're not able to build those relationships. Our community partners who have always been, our staunch supporters, worried about keeping families fed and clothed, keeping a roof over their heads. And so their ability to engage youth has been floundering. Syracuse Surge, which is a program which is supported by the JP Morgan Foundation in our community, is targeting our most underserved populations to bring them into Industry 4.0, IT careers, advanced manufacturing. And we had such an awesome start. They had been doing events across our community and getting tens, 50s, hundreds of kids to show up for events that were around learning how your desire to be part of these kinds of careers could be actually recognized and who was going to help you do it. They've seen about a 70% decrease because, again, remotely, they can't see and touch and feel those kids and really understand what do they want to see, and really giving them access to people in their community who look like them and have had the same kinds of challenges that they are. So COVID has really sort of redefined engagement look like. I know Lori has more to talk about with employers, so I'm going to let her take the next bullet.
Hi, everyone. So many of our employers are really facing challenges with not only keeping their workers safe and healthy, but also with being able to fulfill their customer orders on time. Due to COVID, many employers are facing an increase of out-of-work employees from extended sick leave due to illness or exposure, or not returning to work after a temporary furlough, or even employees leaving their jobs to a lack of childcare or underlying health conditions. Whatever the reason, each employer is faced with the difficult decision of the best way of how to restructure their organization, reallocate resources to ensure their doors remain open. So they're rearranging their production lines and machinery to ensure they're providing the proper spacing for employees. And this impacts the number of workers they can schedule on each shift, as well as sometimes adding on additional off shifts to ensure they're still able to fill those customer orders in a timely manner, but they struggle with locating additional workers to fill those spots. Employers are forced to rotate employees into areas of their organization where they don't have the experience or are unknowledgeable of the processes themselves, which has a direct effect on their product quality and an identified lack of resources. So a few of our employers that have apprentices on staff, they're really looking for those solutions on how their apprentices can still progress in their program and receive the education and training they need to ensure their success. Kind of a double-edged sword because they don't know where to go or how to get those resources in place, or they're not having the individual leave their organization for a long period of time to travel to a school, to attend a class, or to a vocational or training school, and that they're out of the office and not performing. So this has definitely increased our focus on defining alternative programs that are a win for both the employer and the apprentices. Next slide.
So I'm sure that all of you have, heard people talk about virtual engagement, and it's a great tagline, but really what are people doing for these virtual engagement activities that are working? And one of the things that we wanted to really focus on as an organization is that we knew that keeping kids interested and really giving them personal insights into careers was going to be more important than ever this year. And the fact that they weren't going to be able to actually go into a lot of these employers' facilities and do work-based learning meant that we had to bring those employers to the table. So a couple of things that we've done that have provided us with really great success are we started to do a series called You Do What for a Living. And we intentionally manned that with our leadership executive at MACNY, who himself started as a tool and die apprentice when he was 18 years old. He has seen a career that has not only spanned manufacturing, but has also now led into supporting other manufacturers in being a trainer in both the leadership realm and also in the skill set, so that other apprentices have the same types of abilities and access to experiences that he was able to have. We started those in October of this year around Manufacturing Day, and we have done things like tool and die makers, we've done welders, we did a barber who talked about the best way to learn how to cut hair was by being an apprentice. We've been able to identify very different educational requirements and experience requirements that lead to successful career pathways. Our Engage in STEM Careers event gave us access to traditionally college-bound youth. More and more, we are hearing from our educational partners that college is becoming a 1 or 2 semester event, and with COVID, this has been exacerbated. So bringing those kids to the table to find out what other pathways are available when college isn't the only answer has been very, very successful for us as well. We've done career coaching and mentoring with students in the P-TECH programs for over 7 years, and it's been extremely successful, but we noted that it had too small of an impact. It doesn't reach all students. By starting to do some of these other events, we were able to start working with students in middle school and high school to introduce them to these career pathways, and we were able to gain access to over 76 regional districts in our area. That leads to that community partnerships thing. We were able to partner with the Central New York School Boards Association, who actually brought it to our attention that superintendents and principals were very worried about where students were going to be going at the end of the year. And if we weren't providing them with very concrete options that we were going to lose them into sort of that abyss where kids go when they don't know what they're going to do with their lives, and they don't really have those pathways that are well defined prior to leaving high school. So those community partnerships became so much more important. The other thing that we needed to make sure that we were doing was, because students are being pulled in multiple directions, and because their parents and guardians are being pulled in those directions, our community partners told us that we needed to be part of the grandma's social gathering networks, that there were a lot of caregivers for students who were at community gatherings, that were at church gatherings, that still had a real network feeling even through COVID. And we needed to make sure that we were encouraging them to speak to the children in their lives about these partnerships as well. So, you know, it really opened our eyes to the fact that it wasn't enough to just talk about it, that we had to have a way to show students what we could do. And these virtual engagements were really the only way that we had to do it right now. I know that, again, with the LMI community, they were most directly hit by COVID. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to really engage those community partners and let them know that the people that were dislocated from their jobs because of COVID in hospitality and in retail, those were people that we were looking to bring into our realm, show them the pathways that we could provide in advanced manufacturing and IT, and that by giving us access to those parents, we could start working with them as well as their children. And we could start, again, just bringing in lots of people who hadn't seen what we had to offer and the great careers that are available. Lori, I'll let you go on with our virtual engagements of employers.
So one of the areas of focus with our employers, talking to them, is that they were looking for more of a streamlined approach for, you know, being able to offer these virtual education to their employees, like I was saying before, without them leaving the facility. So a couple things that we did was, one, we streamlined our entire internal registration process for apprenticeship, and we really did develop an effective way to onboard those apprentices virtually. We actually now are 100% virtual at this time with all of our onboarding initiatives. It also allows us the flexibility to schedule multiple meetings with a single employer to accommodate different shifts, so that it decreases the amount of travel that we have. It's been extremely successful. We're very proud to say that we've retained over 94% of our active apprentices, and we've added 5 apprentices over the past 8 months. So it has been very successful. Additionally, we added a virtual blueprint reading and GD&T class. It's split up into 2 4-hour sessions. We piloted that in December, and not only was it successful, but we are now on our 5th offering with a waiting list for another. So these expanded offerings really have allowed us to access different individuals as well as kids with our career coaching that we're performing virtually. Employers are really embracing that they can send you know, some of their key personnel, you know, to a Zoom meeting where they can virtually engage with the students, where if it was on site, it would be difficult for them to let them go. We're also really expanding into the auto industry, working with high schools and students as well as community colleges. And we just, with New York State, have updated our auto trade. And we are in conversations now of, you know, reaching out for those youth apprentices as well. Next slide.
So, you know, with all the challenges that we've had, I think that there are a lot of really big silver linings that we need to think about with COVID. Apprenticeship has always been built around relationships. And right now, students and educators are looking to build those new relationships. They know that they're not engaged. They're actively looking for ways to participate. Parents are proactively looking for new educational opportunities for their children, and they know that a lot of the students are disconnected, and so taking a more active role. And so again, we're getting more parents and guardians to actually come and listen and really see the value of what a youth apprenticeship can offer their children. We needed to really become very proactive in how to make sure we didn't lose 2 years of students who were graduating from high school. And I think, again, because our educators were so focused on the graduation rates, that they were so much more willing to let us kind of take the lead and allow us to really come in and be part of these classrooms, which I'm sure, again, with a lot of you that work with educational facilities on a regular basis, especially if you live in New York State, sometimes it takes us a long time to move those educational things forward. This really just gave us that open spot, and we were able to move right into it and really not drop a beat. And I think that that's just such a positive. Lori talked about reduced travel time. We spent a lot of our time on the road visiting companies, and this gave us a little bit of time in our schedule to really sit back and think about what we could do. It gave us a little bit more time to just be proactive, think outside the box, develop new solutions. And one of those was, for instance, expanding into new industry sectors. We're currently, as Lori said, working with the auto workers. I just recently started working on new trades, the gaming industry that, as we started to investigate, we found were more actually manufacturing related than actually gaming. It was trades that do things like allowing people that are all playing one game at a time to interact with the same computer. It was a whole different outlook on IT than I had ever seen. But what what spending time with those new gaming organizations led me to understand was they have more opportunities for students than we could ever imagine. And they could be, again, careers that were could be in manufacturing, could be in healthcare, could be in gaming. It really gave students flexibility as they were learning. The insurance agency, we just started recently working with fine jewelry manufacturers. So it gave us access to new industry sectors where apprenticeship had not been as popular as it is in those more traditional trades. That was, again, another silver lining. And I think the other thing that really kind of resonates with us is that the departments of labor, I don't care which state you lived in, were so inundated with unemployment and making sure that people had the funding that they need to keep roofs over their heads, that it allowed intermediary organizations like MACNY to take on the additional responsibility of sustaining apprenticeship statewide. It strengthened our relationships with the DOL. It strengthened our partnerships with the education partners. And our alliance partners across the state are being called on and recognized as experts in all of these areas. So I think as much as we've seen challenges, I think we have seen really positive outcomes that all of us that are involved in youth apprenticeship are going to be able to use as we move out of the pandemic. And we really start exploring the multitude of industries, the multitude of partners who want to be part of youth apprenticeship and offer these students an opportunity to get on career pathways early that allow them access to careers that they didn't know existed, but could ultimately change their lives. So that's it from Martha and Lori, unless Lori has anything else to add.
Yeah, you covered it all, Martha. Wonderful.
Questions, comments? What else can we answer for anybody?
So Martha, I have a quick question. This is Andrea, which of course you know because my face is right here. So as you are working with stakeholders during this time, which, as you think about parents, employers, school districts, where do you feel like the biggest hurdle is right now? And like, where's the biggest kind of bang for your buck? Where you kind of dig in first?
I think the biggest hurdle is school not being an everyday occurrence. That we have so many students who are either hybrid or they're not coming at all, or districts have had to rearrange schedules such that, you know, they're getting the maximum bang for their buck to make sure kids are getting, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think the biggest positive has really been parent engagement. And I think that, you know, by offering a lot of these events, and we're trying to do them after hours so that families can be engaged together, or community partners can sponsor this and show it to multiple people. They can have the event. But what it's done is bring more parents to the table to really recognize that apprenticeship is about combining academics and on-the-job learning to create a more like synergistic pathway for these students. And it is not about not providing education, but providing education that is capable of being flexible and inclusive, and providing pathways for all, not just a selected few. And I don't really think that that was out there before COVID. I think we had a lot of parents who really were looking at college as the only option. And I think now, because they've had to be more engaged in order to just keep track of where their kids are in school, and it's really opened their eyes to the ability of organizations like the ones that you all are affiliated with to really provide other opportunities, different opportunities, but opportunities that ultimately lead to that same success in providing a career pathway, not just a job.
That's really helpful. So I know we're at time, but I want to make sure before we leave, are there any other burning questions, any other thoughts, anything that you want to touch on that maybe we can extend into a different office hour? The floor is open.
I guess, Andre, before we leave, I just have one other thing that I would share with people is that, you know, when the world turned upside down and, you know, you're faced with having to do things differently, we thought in the beginning we had to do everything differently and perfectly. And I think if nothing else, all of us need to look at the communities that we live in and really take a stab, like put your foot in the water and try something. Because I think what you'll find is that as community partners, as educators, as families participate, that they will say to you, we want more of this, or we need more help here. And it really helps to define where your resources are best spent But you can't go into it thinking that you have all the answers or that everything's going to work out perfectly the first time. It doesn't. We had, 20 people at our first Engage in SCEM. We had 67. Last week we had 127. So you just have to have a little faith, and you have to just listen to what the stakeholders are telling you are their pain points, and then kind of respond in the best way you know how to help them out.
I think that's a really powerful insight and one that we're all learning. So I really want to, absolutely. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I know we're a couple of minutes late, but again, we're playing with this format of virtual office hours. We're really trying to figure out how we see each other more, how we dive into the conversations more. And I really appreciate Martha and Laura from MACNY for taking the time to join us today. I would be remiss if I did not ask you to also join the Youth Apprenticeship Works conversation. So Youth Apprenticeship Works is our new virtual community of practice. And in that we have youth apprenticeship resources, we have new information regarding upcoming webinars and events, and then it gives you also the opportunity to network with each other and create some real peer-to-peer engagement. So the link is there, and you can also go on to, I think I'll have Cassandra post that here. You can also go on to, pretty soon you'll be able to go on to our Youth Apprenticeship Works, Youth Apprenticeship website and be able to click onto it from there. So at any point, you can always reach out to Cassandra and get some information from her or for myself. So thank you everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.